first unit, we did some exercises dealing with identity. But what did we learn?
We learned that identity is very complicated.
Right. In the first exercise, we presented our names and shared information about them.
Yes, and we saw that our identity includes all the labels given to us since birth.
In the second exercise, we learned that while over the years our identity takes new forms and sheds old ones, its continuity and stability is more or less preserved.
I also want to mention Erik Erikson, a German-American psychologist, an expert in sociology and psychology. He wrote about identity construction and identity crisis in his 1968 book, Identity, Youth, and Crisis. He defined the identity of the self as an inner feeling about who one is. In other words, self-knowledge, what one is like, what one wants, and why.
Netta Barzilai, winner of the 2018 Eurovision Song Contest, says, "I didn't become a swan. I always was a swan." How does this description of herself as a child demonstrate Erikson's theory? Doesn't the feeling of self-identity change throughout life?
This basic feeling of identity usually doesn't change and is maintained in different times and circumstances. Self-identity is more than the sum of its parts.
What affects self-identity more, the person themselves or their environment?
The process of acquiring an identity is essentially both inner and outer, developing in reciprocal relations with society.
Can you give an example?
When I am at home, I behave, dress, and speak differently from when I am at college. Everywhere we go and in every encounter we have with others, we are in reciprocal relations with society, and these influence our identity.
How are self-identity and society related?
Our personal identity is also constructed by our differences with the others in an outside group. We distinguish between an in-group where we belong and an out-group where we do not, and this helps us define our identity.
In the third exercise, we classified ourselves as individuals who identify with members of a group having certain qualities. In the music lovers room, we saw how we can connect to people who like the same genre of music as us. Say, lovers of jazz, rock, or classical. In fact, we did what Turner calls self-categorization. We created identification with a certain group called an in-group, a group we belong to. Stop this noise! You have to recognize the needs of others.
According to Taylor, if we are to develop positive self-evaluation personally and in the group, and live together in a diverse society, the in-group must also be recognized by the out-group.
Oh, what a noise. It's interesting, though, that you play the same instruments as us.
But your music sounds so different. Look, we both have to practice here, so we have to arrange rehearsal times to suit us all. Perhaps in a little while, we can have a joint rehearsal where we can get to know each other.
Awareness of the other and their needs is necessary and essential if we are to keep our own identity while living among the diverse groupings that are part of a multicultural society. Who am I? Who are you? We will learn more about this in the next unit.